right, hello there everyone. This is actually your last lecture of the year. If you were gone yesterday, so Thursday, or today, Friday, we today are finishing up the Unit 10 study guide. So this is the information that if you've been working on the study guide, probably questions that haven't been answered yet. So without further discussion, right, let's dive in. All right, so last time we talked about Harry S. Truman and his decision to drop the atomic bomb. Okay, you guys actually completed in your interactive notebook. Okay, slide 11 and 12. 11 and 12 suggested that Truman's options were, of course, dropping the bomb with warning, dropping the bomb without warning, right, or invading Japan. And of course, as we know, he chose dropping the bomb without warning. Right, this will end World War II. Right, when the Japanese finally surrender on August 15th, 1945. Right, so what types of things do we have since then? Well, after World War II, a couple things have to happen. One, we have to figure out how to prevent a World War III. And as you guys remember, the League of Nations did not work in preventing World War II. So what we end up creating is something called the United Nations. The United Nations, created in 1946, still around today, is meant to resolve conflict and increase cooperation. It also has almost all of the countries in the world, even the countries that we don't get along with in it. Like if you look at it today as permanent members, China, France, Russia, UK, and the US, I would argue that the US is not necessarily super BFFs with China and Russia, and yet we're in it together because we recognize by leaving Germany out of the League of Nations after World War I, that just causes problems. If you really want to have peace, you need to have everybody at the table. All right, also after World War II, we are going to have the Yalta Conference. And the Yalta Conference, if you're wanting to know the study guide question that this is talking about, the Yalta Conference actually set up a major conflict between the United States and the Soviet Union after World War II because we both emerged as superpowers. The Soviet Union appears to be wanting to spread communism. Of course, Americans wanting to limit communism. And this is called the Cold War. The Cold War will start in 1946 and really not end until 1991. Right? Additionally, something that we need to talk about going on behind the scenes was the Holocaust. Right? Now, before we dive into the Holocaust, and Nazi Germany's role in that, remember that racism and discrimination is not a new thing. In countries around the world, during the interwar years, during World War I, the interwar years, and even during World War II, you can still see a lot of discrimination and racism, even in countries like the United States. For example, discrimination against Japanese Americans being rounded up and put in internment camps. We still had discrimination against African Americans with segregation. We had discrimination against Hispanic Americans and Asian Americans. Other places in the world, Europeans are still in control of colonial possessions in Africa and Asia, and treating those people, the native people whose land they had taken, as second-class citizens. And then, of course, the Soviet Union, when they go in and they take over ethnic minorities, they are going to force the Russian culture on them, And so my point here is this, Yes, we talk about the Holocaust and how horrific it was, but, it is also one of those, be aware, that it does not mean that the rest of the world, was sunshine and balloons of equality and taking care of their citizens and treating each other equally. It just never reached quite the extreme, of course, as the Holocaust. So when we talk about anti-Semitism in Nazi Germany, it starts out a lot like discrimination that you would see in places like the US or Africa or Asia or the Soviet Union. But of course, as you guys know, it will boil over into a full-blown genocide. The Mein Kampf is the book that was written by Adolf Hitler. This is the first time that he kind of suggests, kind of a foot in the door technique here, that Germany had been stabbed in the back by the Jews and the communists in World War I. He also, at this point in this book, suggested that the German race was superior to everyone, and he starts using mass rallies and propaganda, and to be honest with you, if you repeat a lie enough, people start to believe it, and this is going to fuel rampant anti-Semitism. Anti-Semitism is prejudice against Jews, That will then catapult into the Nuremberg Lows, which is going to strip the Jews of their citizenship. They couldn't teach at schools anymore. They couldn't hold government jobs. They had to carry identification cards, and define a person as Jewish if one of their grandparents was Jewish. So starting to segregate them. We have Nazi propaganda here that shows, they tried to really dehumanize, right, the Jews as well, like make them look like, right, monsters, or, right, spiders or ticks, or, right, where something is rotten, the Jew is the cause, right? Even like children's books, which is really disturbing, trying to influence people very young. All right, Kristallnacht is called the Night of Broken Glass, or at least that's what Americans call it, November 9th through 10th, 1938. A Jew shot a German diplomat in Paris, and because of this, Hitler uses this as an excuse to attack all Jews. He tells everybody, hey, let's go punish the Jews. He tells the fire departments and police departments, hey, there's going to be a lot of fires, but you don't need to show up and do anything about it, because they purposely want to have mayhem. 1,000 synagogues burned, 7,000 businesses are destroyed, and 30,000 Jewish people are forced to concentration camps. Of course, this begins his final solution. His final solution is the deliberate mass execution of the Jews. This carries out in a process. It's not like he just comes in and says, hey, everybody in Germany, let's execute 12 million people, right? Instead, it starts in a process, like segregating them first, discriminating them first, right? Creating propaganda, deporting them, forcing them into ghettos, like areas of towns that were walled off, then moving them to concentration camps, then using them in medical experiments, then mobile killing units, and then finally, of course, extermination camps, the largest of which was Auschwitz, where 1.1 million Jews were killed. But do not forget, 6 million of the 12 million were Jews, but your other victims, guys, are Poles and Slavs, Gypsies, we call them Roma, criminals, homosexuals, people with disabilities, Down syndrome, dyslexia, physical disabilities, anything that he believed might weaken the German master race was systematically murdered and eradicated, right? So how does the world react? Well, we had an idea that this was happening in 1942, but we do not take action, which raises the question, all right, why not take action? And so a lot of the reasons is apathy, right? It's not our problem. We're not involved in it. We're going to stay out of it. Another issue was the United States had a great deal of anti-Semitism. If you remember up here, I told you, right? It's not like discrimination and racism wasn't alive and well in the United States. The KKK, this is their march in Washington in the 1920s. And so not only do they hate ethnic minorities, but they hate Jews. And so people in the United States, many of them had anti-Jewish feelings. And so therefore, even if they had known about it, they may not have done something about it. In summer of 1944, Soviet troops are going to discover the camps. We see these images, right? And from there on, right, we are going to try to prevent genocides from occurring in the future, which will be part of our project, right? So when you look at slide 13, right, what we are also looking at is what allows and what causes people to do terrible things. So if you guys are into true crime shows, right, if there's someone murdered, the first question is who did it? But the more compelling question, I think, is usually why did they do it, right? So what is it about, in this situation? It's not like Adolf Hitler actually killed 12 million people himself. He convinced people to do this. And you have to imagine these people were not barbarians. They were not psychopaths to begin with, right? These were ordinary citizens. So how can you convince ordinary citizens to do terrible things to each other? And so there's actually two different experiments that I would like for you to look at. You do not need to look at Zimbardo's experiment, right? Please look at Asch's conformity, right? Watch this video. It's 4 minutes. I realize it's old, right? But watch it. Then, write the experimenter's name. So this is Solomon Asch, a brief summary of the experiment, and then what did they find, right, about people's behaviors, right, when it comes to conformity. Additionally, this is Stanley Milgram's experiment, and this one I think is incredibly compelling. I think you'll find it super interesting. Again, you'll write his name, right there, Milgram, a brief summary of the experiment, and then what did they find, right? How would understanding, right, these two things and understanding human psychology help you prevent another Holocaust, right? This is your opinion, write it down here, right? Like over here in Solomon Asch, they realized that all it took was one person to step out, right, and it breaks up the power of the group. Maybe that has something to do with your solution, right? Over here, right, we tend to do what authority tells us, right? So what types of things could we do to help people prevent being, right, manipulated by authority? All right, and then what I would like for you to do is take a look at the last slide, right, of the semester. Congratulations, you made it, right? And this is Holocaust research, right? Please read the poem. What's the main idea, right? What is this proposed solution to the Holocaust? And please write one more verse, right? Maybe your one more verse is about solutions, right? And I think that would be good. You could also add a verse, right, somewhere up here, right? And you're welcome to do that as well. So you'll write, okay, a verse, if you notice, is 3 lines, right? And when you're done with that, you're good to go. All right, if you have questions, right, about how to complete slide 13 or slide 14, please let me know. And otherwise, like I said, that's the last lecture for the semester. The next lecture will explain your Holocaust genocide project. All right, guys, with that, we will talk to you soon.